Zasutir POV. The old lizard trembles, his anxiety bubbling over, yet he doesn't speak up until a few more moments.
Well, Great One, if this one old man's life is the sacrifice that you need to protect everyone else, then you may take it.
What? Sacrifice? No. It's merely the process that binds you to me. That way I may actively work where you are staying, without having to send Basti or Oruru, at least as far as I can tell. It's how I've been bound to everyone so far. Vidmori did his best to explain. Zasutir looked more confused now than anything, sitting up on his knees as he gazed into the swirling glow of the core before him.
You mean you intend on making me a vessel of yours? A representative?
He asked curiously, even tilting his head a little bit. Yes, that. Glad you found the words for it, since you threw me off with all that sacrifice talk. Vidmori sounds almost relieved now that the situation has been clarified. With the general mood seemingly de-escalated, Zasutir relaxed more, sitting cross-legged before the pedestal.
I see. Well, if it is no trouble, could we perhaps try doing this without me dying?
There was a bit of a pregnant pause before Vidmori spoke up. I don't see why not. I'll be honest with you, I've never done all this without someone dying first, so I'll apologize for any discomfort you're about to go through. Zasutir nodded in understanding, grateful that he wouldn't be outright sacrificed.
Well, anything is preferable to death, Vidmori,
he enthused with a small, warm smile. Of course. Now then, perhaps you should lay in the sand. I want you to be as relaxed as you can be when I do this, Vidmori explains, the images of the mage and warrior straining and buckling under the weight of the mana flashing in Zasutir's mind, though it wasn't from his perspective. The elder bowed his head in understanding as he stood, making his way over to the sand of the chamber just off the brick path, the eyes of prowler cubs watching him from some shelf-looking area. Slowly getting down onto his stomach, laying his head on his arm, as if to go to sleep. The next thing he knew, it was like being smashed into by a tidal wave. He was being swept away by the sheer amount of mana poured into him. He could feel his body shifting and twisting under the weight of it all, as he pants and groaned out. Vidmori POV. Gosh, this old lizard is a mess. Lots to do and lots to fix. It's strange. Why doesn't he have a mana heart? I wonder if that's the norm. It's not like I've worked on anything that didn't have one. There are faint glimmers around his heart, but nothing of substance. I grant you the title of shepherd. May your efforts in my service work to free more of your people from slavery. With that, a considerable chunk of energy began pouring into the guy. Though I'm not really satisfied with that, so I go ahead and commit one of those rings of mana that's swirling around in my core into this guy. Peering closer and within, I guide the mana around. They were easing aches and pains, closing internal injuries, and wiping away old scars and breaks. His scales become a more vibrant bronze, instead of the dull brown they were earlier, a diamond of green forming on the lizard's forehead. I also decide to beef him up a little bit, stimulating some natural muscle growth now that his joints aren't an issue anymore. I'm able to regrow his tail in short order as well, just by stimulating his natural healing factor. Even his reptilian hair regains its colour, going from white to an earthy brown. Before I know it, the elder has become a man in his prime. If I had to guess, I just shaved 30 to 50 years of wear off of him, and turned him into a well-developed physical specimen of his race. His mana heart also seems to have developed, pounding with vigour, one of his now vibrant copper-brown eyes turning emerald green. Zasutir POV. It's over. The mana finally stops, and his whole body feels heavy. He could feel his heart thumping in his chest. Wait, he could feel his heart thumping? He opened his eyes slowly, taking in a deep breath before exhaling with an ease he hadn't felt in decades. Sitting up, he looks over to Vidmori's core with such a distinct clarity. I feel so young. My eyes haven't been this good in years. Even as he sat up, he felt much more limber, testing himself as he launched up with a push. Hopping onto his feet, He let out a stupefied chuckle, before laughing almost hysterically as he looked himself over. "By the gods, I'm sexy," he enthused, sort of spinning in place as he looked over his pristine scales, running his clawed fingers through his hair before looking over his hands and arms. His raggedy clothes barely fit him now that his body was more filled out and nowhere near as decrepit as it used to be. He was panting with exhilaration, a smile plastered on his face before he remembered where he was, and turned to look to Vicmori's core, approaching and getting to both knees, as he bowed as deeply as he could manage. "Oh, Great One, I thank you for this blessing. For this new lease of life you've granted me, I swear I'll be your loyal servant forevermore." With that, he hopped back up to his feet, intensely appreciating the novel sensation as he flexed his legs and toes, chuckling with delight at the sight of the mobility. Vidmori's voice echoed in his mind, and he sounded surprised but full of mirth. "I'm happy for you, Zasutir. I'm just glad it turned out so well. Now then, it's time for you to go back to camp. We have some work to do." Zasutir smiled, looking back over to Vidmori's core and bowing his head. "Of course, Great One. I'll make my way down as soon as possible." With that, he turned towards the chamber entrance and stepped out into the daylight, holding his hand out towards the sun as his eyes adjust to the light. With a slow, deep breath, he grins and starts heading down the mountain with a skip in his step.